There were countless heroes on that September morning when the Washington Navy Yard was just thrown into utter chaos.
That's when a gunman took his life as well as the lives of 12 others. Well, today, one of the first police officers to respond when the shots rang out was honored.
Corporal Keith Shibley is presented the Valor Award for his immediate response and courageous actions during the shooting rampage at the Washington Navy Yard on September 6th.
When we found people, we would escort them out because we didn't know where the shooter was. So we didn't want to direct people out of the door when the shooter could be around the corner. So half of us would escort him out, half the team would continue, and then we would just, once they were escorted out, we would meet back up and go back in.
Multiple shots fired, multiple people down.
We didn't know if they were law enforcement shots or from the suspect at the time. They were on multiple levels as we were coming down the steps, but you could hear the shots while we were inside the building.
Can you describe the faces that you were rescuing?
Just shocked and scared, I guess. I mean, some were calm and some were shocked and scared. It was just a mix of all emotions. I believe 77 law enforcement officers that entered the building that day, not to mention the countless people that were outside of the building. So it was an effort by the whole community and all the law enforcement partners within the district. It doesn't hit you probably until about time you go home. Would I do it again? Absolutely. I couldn't live with myself knowing that I could do something to save lives and didn't do it. I wouldn't be able to live with myself knowing that I could have done something and didn't do anything at all.
And there he is, Mr. Keith Shibley. Keith, how you doing, my friend?
Doing good, Loomis, man. Thanks for having me, bud.
Yeah, no, great to have you on. We got connected through a mutual friend, Mr. Kevin Donaldson.
Yeah.
Great guy, Kevin.
Yeah.
I mean, there's just something. I saw him on a podcast like 3 years ago, and I just knew. I was like, oh man, that guy seems very, very genuine. Then I saw him recently, 2 months back, with Anthony Ruggiano talking, and then I just reached out to him and I was like, hey man, what's up? Blah blah blah. We called each other, we hit it off, and he's one of the genuine ones out there.
Yeah. I found Kevin by mistake on Instagram, man, and checked out his show and gave him a call, and it was the same, man. We just kind of hit it off, and went up there and did his show, and have just been pretty good friends ever since.
Yeah, great guy. So shout out to Kevin Donaldson and the Suffering Podcast. Folks, hit that like button and subscribe. So Keith, what I usually like to do is I usually like, with any guest I have on, take it back to as early as you want to take it back. Like who is Keith Shibley from back in the day growing up wise, and then, just explain your story the way you want to explain it, and then we'll just bounce off each other like that.
Sounds good, man. Yeah, so I grew up in Richmond, Virginia. Both of my parents are of Lebanese descent. So I was raised pretty old school, Middle Eastern Catholic upbringing. But it was fun, man. I got an older brother. I've got two younger sisters, and very big family. My mom's one of four. My dad's one of five. All my aunts and uncles and first cousins were all in the same city, pretty much. So it was a good upbringing. But the one thing that I tell this story usually just to kind of kick it off, and it'll flow into the rest of what we're going to talk about. But very close to my grandparents, and when I was 11 or 12, my brother and I were fishing with my grandfather. He knew that we liked fishing. We were trying to find a lake house on Colonial Beach out here in Virginia. We were all going to throw in and buy a family kind of vacation lake river house or whatever. So me and my brother were down there fishing, and he ended up he said he wanted to go eat lunch. He said, "You boys ain't catching shit. Let's go eat lunch." And I started laughing, and he just kind of collapsed and ended up having a heart attack and passing away. And I tell that story for this reason, because, after EMS comes and, work on him, there's really nothing you could do. I remember I was just bawling because my grandfather, I spent a lot of time with him.
How old again were you?
I was 11 or 12 years old.
11 or 12 years old.
He was in the restaurant business too. So I grew up, as a little kid washing dishes, being in the restaurant, and we were just very close to him. And then, my dad came up and just he just snatched me up and he just pointed at my tears and he goes, "You got to turn that shit off right now. You got to be strong for your mother and your sisters." And it was just kind of like a switch, Loomis. Just shut it down. And it was just very early on, the way I was brought up, it was like men don't show emotion. If you have to do it in the closet or do it in a room where nobody else is at, but you don't outwardly show emotion. And then emotion is weakness is kind of what I was taught. And, no dig on them. That's how they were brought up too.
That's exactly how, same thing. My father, who's sick right now, I'll go by him. I'll be like, "Hey, how you feel today?" He gets all mad. He's like, "What do you mean? How do I feel?" I mean, well, you have stage 4 cancer, this and that, but no, they don't show it. They're old school. I was the same way.
Yeah. My dad's dad is still alive and he's 97 or 98, lives by himself, will not live with anybody else, cuts his own grass still, refuses to ask for help at in his almost 100 years old. So that was just how we were kind of raised. But I had a great childhood, man. My parents sent us to Catholic school growing up. And for high school, I went to a Catholic military high school, but it was pretty fun. It was an all boys school in Richmond. But it was a day military school. You didn't sleep there. You just went there in the morning, left in the evening. But it was kind of like a family tradition. My mom's dad graduated from that same high school in 1956. My dad's dad graduated in 1954. My dad graduated from there in 1970. And then we went there. I ended up graduating in 1996. But it was fun, man. Played sports. Did all the stuff that normal high school kids do, played sports, drank on the weekends. Alcohol in my family wasn't a big issue. After a football or baseball game, we could go to my house and go in the backyard and drink beers. And my dad would usually, he's like, "All right, who's drinking?" And whoever was drinking just had to hand their car keys over to dad. He was like, "Y'all are staying the night." And we would just go back there. So they wouldn't get it. They wouldn't give us alcohol, but they knew we could get it. And they were more or less like, "I'd rather you do it here than somewhere else and then try to drive home" type stuff. But alcohol was never really frowned upon, in my house. So, but the one thing I wouldn't do, I wanted to be a cop for some reason. I wish I wanted to be a lawyer or a doctor or freaking something to make money, but I decided to be a police officer. My parents said since I was 5 or 6. They said that's all I talked about. I wasn't good academically in school. I can't read something and retain it and take a test. I'm more of a hands-on type learner, but so school was rough for me and I wanted to be a police officer. So I knew there were certain things I could not do. So even though I was drinking on the weekends and stuff, I wouldn't touch any kind of drugs. Marijuana was definitely big in the 90s in my high school. And I wouldn't smoke it. I think I smoked it twice. And that was because we do stupid shit for women. So I got a new girlfriend and she smoked weed. I think I smoked weed with her twice. And honestly, I didn't enjoy it, that much. And I knew I couldn't do it if I wanted to reach my goal of, being a police officer. So college was pushed on us pretty good. So I went to college. I went to Marshall University out in Huntington, West Virginia. And it was the same. I mean, C's, D's, didn't do too great. And the same thing there, I would tailgate for football games. I'd go to bars on the weekends, parties all, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. But it wasn't a big deal. I met my wife when I think I met her on my 21st birthday or a couple of days before or after. And we started hanging out and dating. And, that's how college went. And, a lot of stuff was thrown at me in front of college. Ecstasy started getting really big. Coke obviously was big. And I was around it all the time, but I just wouldn't do it. I knew what my goal was and I wanted to reach it. And, drinking was good enough for me. So I didn't touch it. But, so yeah, man. So my wife was a year older than me. So she moved back to the DC area. And I quickly found out that I didn't need a degree to be a police officer. So I just quit college, moved back to Richmond. So we were about an hour and a half away from each other. Continued dating. I was doing, construction stuff. A bunch of my family's in construction. And I just started applying to police departments. And, right after 9/11, up here in D.C., I got hired by the Airport Authority Police Department. It's like the Port Authority in D.C. that does the two major airports. And it was great, man. I think I was 22 or 23. Went to the police academy, finally started reaching my goal. Enjoyed the police academy, moved up here, moved in with my then girlfriend. And like, I was happy, man. My trajectory for life was kind of working out the way I wanted it to. So right after the academy, I got assigned to Dulles Airport, and Dulles has a long stretch of highway in between Reagan and Dulles. It's like 4 lanes each way. Then there's 2 lanes each way in the middle, and it's the main highway from DC into Northern Virginia. So I loved working the highway because you could get into the good stuff. You DUIs or stop a car with dope or bulk money or whatever. So I was working midnight shift. I think I was off field training like 3 months. So I'm like, for 3 months, I'm finally cut loose. I'm by myself. And I stop a car going like 30 miles an hour on the highway. And it was 30 in a 55 mile an hour zone. He's all over the road. He pulls over. I go up to the window. You can smell the alcohol. He's got liquid all over his shirt. His pants are unzipped. I mean, every telltale sign that, the guy's drunk. Get him out of the car, do field sobriety. He fails them. He blows like, I think it was a 2.2 or 2.3 on the preliminary breath test. So he was drunk. I mean, he was wasted. So backup officer arrives. I put him in handcuffs. And then thankfully a supervisor just ended up passing by and ended up stopping because back then we didn't have like cage cars. You know how like the backseat all police officers' cars are like cages now? We didn't have those. And what we would do, we would transport them right next to us in the front passenger seat because we didn't want them to put them behind us with nothing back there. But the front seat's where we kept all of our police gear, like our bags and all that stuff. So I asked the backup officer, I said, hey, man, can you watch my prisoner so I can transport this guy to jail? And he was like, yeah, I'll watch him. So as I walked back to my car, the backup officer actually had his back to the prisoner. He wasn't watching him at all. And as I take out my bag, I just see a flash. And this kid's handcuffed behind his back, and he's looking left down the highway, and he's just timing this 18-wheeler, and he jumps to try to jump in front of the 18-wheeler. And he ends up hitting the side of it. It was a car carrier, one of those big metal car carriers. And thankfully, it didn't hit him head on, but, it threw him 50 feet, ripped him out of his shoes. And that was just – it was a graphic scene.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah.
He was still alive, though. So, the EMS and the troopers come, and they're going to land a helicopter on the highway to get to life flight him. And I remember like the dark humor in policing, it came in really early because this trooper came up to me and he was like, hey, whose stop was this? And I was like, it was mine. And he just looked right at me. He goes, oh, your career's fucking over. And he walked away. And I'm brand new, man. And like, I know I was responsible for this kid for the most part because I was the one that was arresting him. And so we went to the hospital. He ended up living, actually. He was pretty messed up. But I was talking to his parents in the hospital, and what they told me was he had that A on his license, or an R, which means restricted license. And I just thought he was a 2.3, man. 2.3 is pretty wasted, but he was actually he actually had some mental deficiencies. I think it was either Asperger's or something like that. And talking to his mom, she would say, like, in school, when he would get bullied, he would run headfirst into a brick wall and knock himself out. And it kind of just, it made me, I was like, that's what he was doing, man. He saw me as the bully, and he was just trying to do that, I guess. I don't know.
Escape that in his way, yeah.
But I remember going home, man, and it's like I felt awful. And I started, asking myself, like, why do you feel bad? He was technically the bad guy doing bad things, and he ran. It's not like you, but it was, I started feeling, I felt really bad about it, and going to sleep that night, I just kept seeing the collision. And I'm like, what is wrong with me, man? Like, can I not do this? Because there's no way in hell I was going to tell anybody that bothered me, though. I didn't want to be labeled, the sissy or the pussy that couldn't do the job or whatever. So I just didn't say anything, man. Pushed it down like I was taught to do as a child, and come back to work the next day, and there's like a little 18-wheeler Matchbox car in my locker, and the jokes start. And that was my first experience of like a traumatic incident in law enforcement. And they say most people.
Go ahead. I just wanted to ask you one question, because I've been talking to a couple of cops and stuff, and one question I didn't ask, when you're out though, like in the academy, I know there's no training that they could do for what you're gonna see, but do they try to at least like prepare, like you're gonna be seeing some fucked up shit, like because you get maced in the eyes, you're training, you're learning all your stuff, all this type of stuff that I hear from, because my cousin though was a cop and stuff. But I mean, what about like the train, like the mental health aspect of what you're about to see in the duty? Like, is there?
I think in the 6 months we might have had a 2-hour block, so it was very minimal. It's a lot better now. It's gotten a lot better. But
I mean, that's
back then it was a 2-hour block that you sat in the back and you're like, this isn't going to be me. I don't need this. So it was kind of like in one ear and out the other. I can't even remember if we actually had it, but I do think we had like an hour or two block of it. But no, back then they didn't really talk about that kind of stuff. They would show you pictures of like fatal car wrecks, but they're also pictures. And, it's
completely different than being there. Yeah. I mean, doesn't even compare.
No, but the other thing that started right away in law enforcement for me was alcohol. I mean, cops drink all the time. We called it quiet practice, man. I would get off. You have half the shift get off at 10 p.m., half the shift get off at 11 p.m. If you got off at 10 p.m., you collected the money and you went and got the ice and the beer. And if you got off at 11, you met the guys in the parking lot. We would sit in the police parking lot at the police station with, folding chairs out in the back of the parking lot. And we would just, that's what we did to unwind and whatever. But we would just sit there and drink beer for a couple. Nobody got wasted. Nobody was getting hammered. But when you drink 2 or 3 beers, man, and just kind of relax. But it wasn't a Thursday, Friday thing like college. There was somebody wanting quiet practice almost every day. And at the time, I just got engaged to my now wife. She was a teacher, so she was usually in bed by 9. So I was like, she's in bed. I might as well stay out here and do choir practice with the guys, And it just became a routine thing, man. They say that most people will see in between 2 to 5 traumatic incidents in their life. And they say the average cop in a 20-year span will see anywhere between like 400 and 600. And it just does damage that nobody talks about, man, So, I mean, I enjoyed police work for the most part, but some of that stuff stuck with me, man. Fatal accidents bother me. I don't know why. I think it could be anybody, it could be my sister, my brother, my mother, my wife. It could be one of my kids. And just working those, they usually stuck with me more than a lot of the other stuff. But I went to the airport was great, but I wanted to go do like city work, I wanted to go do the stuff that I always watched on television. So I'm from Richmond, Virginia. Richmond's it's a pretty hopping inner city. So my wife's whole family was in the Northern Virginia area, but it's expensive up here. And so I told her, I said, hey, look, we're getting married. We're gonna start a family. It's a lot cheaper to live in Richmond, and sold her on it. So I applied to Richmond City Police and got hired down there in 2004. Excuse me. I went to Richmond, and man, that was an eye opener. I mean, right off the bat, they stick you in the worst of the worst parts and on overnight shifts. I loved it. I mean, being in my young 20s, working 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. and just car chases. And
the overnight's got to be the craziest shit.
It was, getting shot at the first time. I didn't even know what it was. I wasn't even, they were like, were you scared? I said, I didn't even realize I was getting shot at till somebody said, hey, that dude's shooting at us. But it was just, that's an adrenaline. It's an adrenaline rush that you can't buy off a shelf. It's pretty addictive, but I enjoyed it, man. I enjoyed getting guns off the streets. I enjoyed locking up people that abuse children. I'm rapists, robberies, homicide stuff.
How do you hold back? How do you hold back though, like from those children rapists, bro? Like, I mean, obviously in your mind, Keith, I'm sure you would have loved to smash them immediately. I know it's just,
yeah, it's yeah.
With my temper, I'd be worried that if I don't know. It's great though. You're getting them off the street, thank God. But I'm talking in my younger 20s, because I think we're about the same age. The way you're adding everything up.
Yeah, I'm 47, 48, one of those two.
44. So around the same time period though. But like I'm just thinking me in my 20s and my temper. I mean, I don't know. I'm sure I want it. I would do what you do. I mean, it's a lot easier said than done, but I mean, that's the shit though that eats at me the most.
Yeah. I can say it was a lot easier to deal with those kind of people before cell phone cameras were prevalent. It was back in those days. There was no body worn cameras, and there was really no cell phone. Where else, you're still working a Nokia flip phone back then. So I mean, sometimes, especially with like sexual assault people, we didn't really play with them too much. But it was those little things, man, they just kept sticking with me, just the stuff that bothered me. Fatal car wrecks, anything that has to do with a child. I mean, even going into some of these houses, man, and it's like there's zero food. I'm talking zero food in the fridge. And this kid's, and it would get to me. But I mean, I enjoyed it. It was fun work, but Richmond was the same way as the airport. We'd go to 3rd Street Diner because they were open 24 hours. We get off at 7. We'd be at 3rd Street Diner by 7:30, and they would have drink specials for us in the morning. Like you get your omelets and your pitchers of beer or your Jack and Cokes, and the place was packed because you had the Medical College of Virginia right here. So you go in there at 8 o'clock in the morning, and it's the night shift nurses, the night shift doctors, the night shift cops, and it was. If we didn't have choir practice in the parking lot, we were meeting at 3rd Street Diner. And it started becoming more of a routine thing. If you had a really bad night, you had booze. If you had a really good night, you had booze. And it started becoming more of a routine thing. But in, I think it was 05, I went to a call. It was the call came out as a car crash into a house. And we get there, and very quickly, it wasn't like a crash. You could tell that the car was in the driveway. It was still in drive or neutral or whatever. And it just kind of rolled up to the house. But when I looked in the vehicle, the windows were rolled up. It was July. And right off, you could just see the baby in the car seat, man. And you could see the foam, like everything that, you break the window, the smell hits you. And, that kid had been there for a long time. And that was the first time, Loomis, that I remember going home and I didn't want to go to choir practice, man. And I didn't want to go to 3rd Street Diner. I just wanted to get home. And that was one of the first times that I remember drinking in excess by myself to get to sleep because I didn't want to think about it. Like I couldn't turn this machine off. So that was one of the first times that I went home by myself and drank. And, those days started becoming a little more and more, but it still wasn't every day. My wife would be getting up to go teach. I'd be coming home. I'd crack a beer. It'd start a fight. You're drinking at 7 or 8 in the morning. And I'm like, this is my 8 o'clock at night, not my 8 o'clock in the morning. I'm justifying, I could justify anything, to be honest with you. And so we would have little arguments here and there about it. But like I said, it wasn't an everyday thing. And the other thing,
were you talking to her about what you were seeing?
No. So I'm glad you brought that up, because I remember right when I got to Richmond, I think it was like one of my first car chases or something. We didn't have a pursuit policy, man. If they ran, you chased them. It was great. But I remember coming home and I was like, honey, this is what I did, this, and this, and this. And she said, stop. She said, you're gone from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. I already worry enough that you might not come home. I don't need to know fucking details. So I just shut it down from then, man. I still to this day never talk about work at home. I might say, hey, look, I have had a bad day. I need some time and go off a little bit. But like as far as details and stuff, I don't. So for the past 23 years, it's just, I don't want to tell her anything that's going to bother her or make her stay up at night. So, I didn't say anything. So it sucked, man. I couldn't tell my coworkers because I didn't want to be labeled the pussy of the department. I couldn't talk about it at home. I sure as hell was not going to go see a therapist because that just proves that I'm mentally weak and I can't handle my shit. This is how I'm thinking back then, So, but I'll tell you, one of the worst things to go to is have to do a death notification, man. Those are the worst. There was a car wreck on Jeff Davis Highway. My partner and I were behind a pickup truck going the wrong way down Jeff Davis Highway at about 70 miles an hour. And we're trying to get in front. It was 4th of July weekend, man. I'll never forget it. And we were trying to get in front of the truck to warn the people, or try to get in front of them to slow them down or something. And the truck crushed this hill. And then you just heard it, man. You heard the head-on crash. And the crash was so bad. It was a Mustang. I remember it was a red Mustang. There were two 17-year-old girls, one driving, one in the front seat, and a 15-year-old girl in the back seat. The driver and the girl in the back seat were sisters. But the accident was so bad. When everybody sees a crash or blue lights, everybody comes to watch. There's this 4th of July party going off to my right, and everybody's coming over to watch. So there's a line of like 20 people. And yeah, Loomis, that car wreck was so bad that for 45 minutes, these people watched that car wreck and didn't realize that two of those girls were their daughter. They had no idea. The car was just so mangled, they couldn't tell. So we had to go over there and make that notification, man. And like, that's a scream. Like you can hear that scream for that scream is just imprinted in my brain. A mother scream for like a child notification. It's just horrible. I've had to do a few.
You ever have to do like knock on doors and that type of stuff?
Yeah. We had one it was an industrial accident at Dulles where the kid was like 22, man. And he was, those big metal trays at the airport that they put the bigger containers on and lift them up. Those metal trays weigh like 300 pounds each. And he had a stack of like 4 of them bungee to the wall or strapped to the wall. And I guess he didn't know how much they weighed. So he just hit the strap and it crushed him. And as we're working that, he passed away. And as we're working that, his cell phone's ringing. And I'm looking at it. It says mom on it. She called like 8 or 9 times, man. And we went to her house to tell her. She had that mother's intuition. She knew something happened, but it was like his 3rd or 4th day on the job doing that stuff. So, yeah, those are things that just like you lay down at night, man, because some of that stuff kind of revisits you and you don't want it to. So,
even when I just watch, like, I wasn't a cop, but even when I watch just on, even shows or whatever, I always say, like, whenever I see him, like, walking up to the porch to the family, like, to notify them, like, that's got to be terrible. I mean,
yeah. And, everybody looks at it, you like you're kind of heartless, too, because you have to be blunt. You can't go up there and say, they teach you to not say passed away. They teach you to not say, but they teach you to say died or dead, because sometimes, like, if you try to sugarcoat it, it doesn't really register. And you kind of, that's how they taught us, at least. You want to be blunt about it and say, there's a car accident, your child is dead, or blah, blah, blah. And it sounds heartless when you do it. But, because I remember going one and we used passed away or passed. I think the officer said, your kid passed. Passed what? Like, what are you talking about? And it just wasn't computing at the time. So, but yeah, that's like the stuff that you don't see on TV that like the public doesn't get a lot, and it's, you mentioned training, and we don't get enough anymore. Like we don't get training, man. And it's so, like if I just say that the baby in the car, I'm done that call, baby's dead, call the medical examiner, they come do blah, blah, blah. 2 hours later, hour and a half later, you're back to work. Looking back at it now, I'm not in the right frame of mind to go back to work, man. And now I'm pulling over a car, and because I'm not in the right frame of mind, I act like an asshole, and I do some dumb shit I probably wouldn't do otherwise. It's to the point now. It's like they're like, we don't have enough people to send you home. It's like, but if your cop is not in the right frame of mind to be doing that job, they need to be sent home, or at least taken off. But that's a lot of like, people are like, why are you so angry, or why were you such a dick? It's like, dude, I just worked a fatal crash for 2 hours, man. And now you're going 98 miles an hour. And I don't feel like working another one. And I don't feel like telling your mom you're dead. So it comes out as like anger, but it's, that's just some of the stuff that
it was trauma that you didn't deal with, and it just happened not too like a few hours back, and then you're already out there on the road. That's you would think after seeing something like that, they'd be like, hey, take the day, this or that. But no.
And it's getting better. It's past like 4 or 5 years when, mental health and law enforcement's become more of a hot button topic. It is getting a little better, but yeah, it was just suck it up and get back to work, man. That's how you're taught. And you're definitely not going to raise your hand and say, hey, Sarge, I think I need to go home. My head's not right. Like, there's no way you were saying that 20 years ago. It's just, it wasn't happening. So Richmond was fun, man. My wife didn't like it. It was cheaper to live down there, but my paychecks were also half of what they were up here. So it was kind of, she couldn't find a teacher. She's a Montessori school teacher, and there's probably Montessori school in every corner in Northern Virginia, but there's none in Richmond. So she wasn't doing what she wanted to do. And, I was hospitalized a few times with just fights and doing stupid stuff because I thought I was bulletproof back then. And we had my son in 2005. And, when he was about one and a half, finally, after, I got staples in my head and my bone popped out of my hand and I had to have surgery, my wife's like, I'm done. She said, I'm moving back to Northern Virginia with or without you. I hate Richmond, blah, blah, blah. And I'd been down there for about 5 years to the time, 4 or 5 years. So I was like, all right, I was having fun, but that stuff does get old too. Going to domestic after domestic after domestic, it wears on you. And so I called my old department back up here at the airport authority, and I said, hey, are you guys, hiring? And they said, yeah. I said, can I come back? And they said, absolutely. So we moved back to Northern Virginia, and her mom's up here and her sister's up here, and, happy life, happy wife type of stuff, So we moved back and got my job back, man. And I was just worked at Reagan for a little while, got transferred back to Dulles because that's where I wanted to be. And then a spot for investigations came up. I wanted to be a detective, man. The show that really got me hooked into law enforcement was NYPD Blue. I don't know if you ever watched it.
Yeah. I remember that.
Like that.
I always said instead of being a cop, I would love to skip everything and be like a detective in murders. You know what I mean? I always wanted to be detective would be that job.
And it was, that was my goal too, man. Cause it's just like, car stops were fun and that stuff, but I wanted to put the puzzle pieces together and real bad people, So, a spot opened and I put in for investigations and I got it. And I got assigned to the FBI's Joint Terrorism Task Force out of Washington, D.C. And man, dude, that was the best. That was an amazing job. It took about a year to get my background done. But I ended up, having a top secret TSSCI clearance with a polygraph. They swear you in as a U.S. Marshal because it's easier that way, but they basically treat you just like an agent. I mean, you have the same caseload, you do the same work. And I got put on a domestic terrorism squad, and it was I think it was 8 or 9 FBI agents and 8 or 9 task force guys. So it was like me, it was a Secret Service guy, a guy from DC department. So, and it's really just for like information sharing. So like if a Fed needed something, anything that had to do with an airport, even if it wasn't my squad, they were calling me and I was kind of facilitating stuff, but it was fun, man. My partner and I, Tom O'Connor, we did mostly like white supremacy stuff within domestic terrorism realm. Everybody kind of had like their little niche, and that was fun. It was a good time investigating those guys. But one of the, and we were like a response squad too. So like the Alexandria baseball shooting. Remember when the Republican softball team was practicing in like 2015, and that guy came and started shooting at him?
Possibly back then I was a mess. So I was a mess back then, man, to be honest with you. But
so stuff like that. Any big events or big crimes, like we went to a couple active shooter things and the Family Research Council, the baseball shooting, and later into the Navy Yard. But we would respond to those things, and we would determine whether they were like local or rose to the federal level. And if it was federal and it was domestic, we'd take it. So it was fun, man. And I wanted to do more because, so I applied for the FBI's undercover program, and I didn't get in the first time. Got in the second time, and that was just a whole new level of. I liked it, man. I did a lot of online stuff. I did a little bit of in-person stuff, but a lot of stuff I did was more online, especially during the ISIS days because of my Middle Eastern heritage. I kind of played like an ISIS facilitator. People that wanted to go fight with them, we would, try to link up online and then getting them that way. But it was fun, man. But one of the things I didn't anticipate is like you build a relationship. Undercover is building a relationship and then deceiving that person. So, I was pretty good at the relationship part because I could kind of fit into like whatever kind of group. I could go to church and be the church Keith, and then I could go here. But yeah, like one of the first ones I did, man, it was like takedown day, and we were sitting in a restaurant eating, and this guy his name's Doug Story. He came in, he was buying a fully automatic AK-47 because he thought he was a Nazi. He thought the racial holy war was about to start, and he wanted to be prepared for the racial holy war.
He was like a neo-Nazi type. Yeah. Okay.
So we're sitting in a restaurant, man, and I'm nervous because it's like my first takedown day. And
how long were you with them?
I don't know how long that one was.
Ballpark.
6 months, maybe.
6 months, okay.
Yeah. But so when I would meet with him before, I would drink because you got your backup guys watching you and stuff like that. He'd like to meet at Hooters. And it's really hard. I tell you, when you say, hey, I'm going to go meet with a bad guy undercover, I need a couple guys to go to Hooters and have lunch and just watch my back. Half of Hooters was FBI. They're like, we'll go. You had no problem with people volunteering to go to Hooters for their work day, but it was, but you could drink, you just couldn't get messed up. So, but the takedown day, I couldn't because if all hell broke loose, I needed to have the right kind of mind. So I remember he came and sat down, and I was eating an appetizer and had a sweet tea. And he was like, oh, what do you have? I was like, man, I'm not that hungry. He's like, yeah, me either. And I'm thinking to myself, dude, you're about to eat bologna sandwiches, man. I said, Doug, we got time. I said, just get that big burger, man. He did. He got a big burger and some, like, I don't know, free frozen drink or something. But yeah, it was. So I got arrested too. So as he's getting arrested, as he's going back to his car with the gun, I get ripped out of my car and I get arrested as well. But I remember, like, he's staring at me and I'm staring at him. And it was kind of like a guilty feeling, man. It was something I wasn't anticipating because he's a bad dude that needs to go to jail. He's going to kill people. And he's going to kill people based on their race. And that's absolutely horrible. So, like, the guy needs to go to jail. But I didn't anticipate, like, just a little guilt that I had, Because, like, you befriend these people, and then I've never been one to befriend you and then fuck you over. That's just not in my DNA. And so it was just another mind game that I had to wrestle with, But I enjoyed it. I was pretty good at it.
But getting a neo-Nazi off the street like that who's going to kill people. Oh, what was it though that really affected your mind though? Did you like the guy a little bit?
It's the fact that you get to. So like when you're doing a case, you see him as a neo-Nazi that goes to jail, And then when you're meeting with him, you get to see the person.
Yeah.
You get to see the husband and the father and he had a government job. He provided for his family. He was just a racist prick that was going to do bad stuff and had to go to jail. But you just, because you want to befriend him, and then like the easiest way to do like undercover stuff is to keep all your shit as close to the truth as possible, so you're not lying that much. So you find out there's similarities, and then you find out you have same. Like, I like guns. I love shooting guns too. We sit there and talk about guns forever, you know. And you just find your similarities, and you're like, okay, like if you weren't a racist prick, you might be a pretty cool guy to hang out with, type deal, you know. But it was, it was just a different kind of wave of emotion that hit me, and I don't like emotions, man. You know, that's what I suppressed all. Unless it was a good emotion, I suppressed it all, and I didn't want to show it. So, but I had a good. It was a good gig, man. I ended up doing the whole FBI thing for 10 years. But in 2013, the Navy Yard active shooter popped off, where Aaron Alexis went in to the Navy Yard and just started killing people.
This one I heard about.
Yeah. So, you know, my partner, Shay Matera, he was a DC police officer. We got along great, man. He did like deep cover stuff for like 10 years. Like, people didn't even know he was a cop anymore. But Shay, it was just me and him at work. For some reason, I got to work early. I don't know if you know this, but most feds work Tuesday through Thursday from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. That's usually when most of the feds work. Their days are really. I'm just joking. It's a joke with them, but.
Oh, okay.
So it was just me and him there, and my boss comes running out and says, "Hey, man, there's an active shooter at the Navy Yard. You two get there." And so we just jump in my car, and it's about a mile and a half, I guess. And we get to the entrance of the Navy Yard, and the gate's shut. So we got to jump out of the car, put my vest on. So I'm in plain clothes, put my police vest on, and run the 2 blocks to the entrance. And at first, the captain, the DC police captain, didn't want to let us in because we had plain clothes on, and he was worried about like a cop-on-cop shooting. But we had our vest on that said police, and Shay's a very convincing guy, and it was his department. So they ended up letting Shay go in with a group of 5, and we didn't have like rifles. We just had our pistols. So Shay went in the middle of a stack of 5 people. So he had 2 uniforms with rifles in the front and back of them, and he went in with them, and then I went in with the next group of 5 in the middle. So we got split up, but as soon as you walked in, for the first time in my career, like, I was worried about, usually in police work, the oh shit factor happens, and then you realize it happened and you're alive, right? So because it happens usually quick, and for that 2-block run and entering that building, I had time like, this could be it, dude, because we got a call for 2 Middle Eastern males with AK-47s. That's how it came out over the radio. So I'm like, first of all, this vest is going to do absolutely nothing to a rifle round. It's going to go right through both sides of it. And I was scared shitless, man, to be honest with you. But it's like a scared adrenaline thing, man. It's like just like your scariest roller coaster. You know, you're scared, but you still want to go do it. So we enter the building. The first thing you see is the deceased security guard. Like, you have to step over him to get into the building because he's right at the door. And it was an atrium. It was a 4-story atrium. And I remember going in there. I was like, man, if he's sitting up on that like 4th floor, like we're all just done. Yeah. But luckily he wasn't there. We started going through this building trying to find him. The building was 2 city blocks long and 4 stories high. And because it was a military installation, it had like secret and top secret areas to it. So, you know, like your regular desks, cubicles in an office building, it had all those, but because it was sensitive information, all the cubicle walls were 5 feet high. So you couldn't like, it was like a maze trying to find this dude. He could be around any little corner. So we had to go slow, and I'm really short and I couldn't see over the 5-foot walls, but you started seeing, people that were killed, and it hit me different because the first lady I saw was an African-American lady in a bright blue dress, and it ended up not being an AK-47. The gunman had a shotgun, and they were all pretty much point blank to the face.
Yeah.
So seeing her laying there with missing half of her head was just like, you kind of freeze for a second.
As you're still though looking for him, you got to process that and then get back into where's he at. I mean, it's a lot.
Yeah, it was a bad scene, man. Most of them were to the face. So we're going in and out, we're finding pockets of people that are hiding in place, and then two of us would escort them out while the other people went. You'd link back up with more people and go back in. So I went in and out, I think about 4 times, and then the SWAT guy started showing up, and I was like, at this point I knew that the one gunman had been killed it was a DC police officer and a park police officer that ended up taking him out. But the call came out for 2 people, so we're still kind of searching, and it was a clusterfuck, man. Everybody's on different radio channels because you got 8 million departments in DC, all responding to one thing, so nobody knows what anybody else is doing. SWAT teams start coming, and now to get into locked doors, they're breaching them with shotguns. So now all of a sudden, you start hearing gunfire again. You're like, all right, maybe there is a second one. And it just took a while, but they ended up, once we figured out there wasn't another gunman, they cleared everybody out, and then they had like Park Police SWAT team go to floor 4, FBI SWAT team go to 2, and then they just cleared their floor. But by this time I was out and I was done. But because of the nature of the shooting, it was federal, and that's my squad's responsibility. So, Shay and I link up, we start looking at video. They had a big video room, and we just started doing our investigative job. I remember me and Shay were walking out of the building, and I looked at him, I was like, dude, I'm starving, man. I was like, it's got to be lunchtime, because the call came out about 8 o'clock in the morning, 8:22, I think was when we got there. I said, it's got to be lunchtime, man. And I finally looked at my watch, and it was 5 p.m. Like, I had no concept of time. I just looked down, and my wife had called me like 16, 17 times. Because she said she heard it at school that was going on. She goes, I knew you. She said, I just knew you were in there for some reason. So she was a little upset because, it was like 8 hours later that I called her back. But then it started like, a lot of times in policing, it's not really the traumatic event. It's how you're treated afterwards. That's 50% of it to me. It's not all that. It's how you're treated, man. The FBI ended up setting up a command post, and we went up there to see what was going on and see where all our other squad mates were, and we just got hammered, dude. Why did you go in the building? Why did you self-dispatch? You're representative of the FBI. We don't do that. We were here to do the investigative part. We're called rogue task force officers. Because as a cop, we're taught to go in and take care of the threat. But the FBI was like, you should have gone to the command post and wait further instruction. And that's not what we did. So now we're facing disciplinary action because we went in the building instead of going to the command post. And we were told to go back to the office. We were told to write a report on everything we did, everything we saw, everything we touched, blah, blah, blah. So me and Shay go back, man, and our desks kind of face each other. There's like a walkway in the middle. I'm just staring at my screen. It's not even turned on. It's just my screen's black. Trying to comprehend what I don't even know what the hell just happened, man. I'm trying to compute everything. And like any good cop, Shay just looks at me and he goes, Shibley, fuck this. Let's just go to a bar. I was like, that sounds like playing, man. And we just got up and left, went to a bar, man. Because that's what we did. When we couldn't figure stuff out or we had a rough day, that was our go-to. My police department ended up giving me a accommodation for going in there. So, I mean, that was nice, but I didn't realize how much that day affected me, because getting to sleep without drinking now was like, I got to have at least 2 when I go home. There was at least 3 when I go home. And then it was slowly progressing. I mean, it wasn't something that I had to have all the time, but it was something that I was having a lot. Shortly after the Navy Yard, I've got a disc issue. Like, it's just genetics, disc degeneration disorder or some shit like that. Well, I also didn't go see doctors because I don't need a doctor because I'm not a pussy. So, but my back was bothering me, and I let it go, and I let it go, and I let it go. And it got to the point where I couldn't put my shoes on, and my right leg was going totally numb, and my discs in my lower back were just exploding. So I finally went to the doctor, and he was like, "All right, you got like 2 really bad ruptured discs. We can do surgery, or we can do epidural shots in your spine and hopefully shrink it. But the epidurals are going to take some time. I mean, you can only get like 1 every couple months." So I was like, I don't want to have surgery, man. I've heard nightmares about back surgery. Let's just do the epidurals. So got my first epidural that day, and the doctor gave me a prescription of opiates, man, Percocet. And when that very first one hit my body, it was game over, man. I love that shit. Loved it. Fell in love with that stuff immediately.
I'm always smiling. I know exactly what you're meaning. Yeah.
I mean, it just, I guess it puts some people out. Loomis, I take that shit and I'm cooking and cleaning like I've never cooked and cleaned before. You know what I mean?
I feel whole. Yeah. Like I feel full. Like, you know, exactly. Yeah.
It's just the whole feeling of good. I just felt good. So it took away the shit in my brain, man. And I could sleep like a baby at night. And I was just like, it was my miracle drug, dude. This is what I was talking about. Like, this is it. And like I said, I never did drugs growing up. So that part's not even clicking yet. Like you shouldn't like this much was not even computing. I was just like, the doctor's giving it to me. I have to have it. I'm in pain. So there's nothing wrong with it. Yeah, man, it just made me a whole different person. So my back's feel, you know, I'm doing the shots, I'm taking the meds, I'm going back to work, I'm still getting all my work done. Waking up, I wake up early, take one, I'm off to work, man, and it's just like I'm working. So, and I was still drinking on top of them on the weekends and stuff. I mean, I was still having beers with the boys on top of it. And I remember, like, I don't know how many months into it was, but I started going through them a little too fast. You know what I mean? Like, 1 every 4 to 6 hours started being like 1 every 2 hours. And then, so I didn't know what was wrong with me because when I ran out, I thought, I was like, why am I'm getting sick an awful lot. I thought I had the flu. I was like, I'm getting sick. Like, what's going on? I didn't know what it was, man. I had no idea. So, you know, I go to the doctor and I tell him, I said, hey, doc, I said, I might be getting hooked on this stuff. It started, you know, just, it was little voice telling me like something's not right. So I was like, he's like, why do you say that? And I said, well, I got to take 2 instead of 1 because 1 doesn't take care of the pain. He goes, nah. He goes, what I gave you is not strong enough to get addicted like that. He goes, your body's getting used to it. We just need to up your dose. I was like, cool. You're the doctor. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, you know, we went from 7.5s to 10s, and you know, get 120 of those things a month.
Perk 10s, yeah.
And then the same thing, man. You know, I was taking them, and it was just, I don't know. The time frame is now foggy. I don't really know how, like, the time frames of like when I went from 7s to 10s, but after being on the 10s for a while, I knew what the sickness was. I knew I was dope sick when I didn't have it, and it is the worst fucking feeling imaginable. And your brain will tell you to do anything you can not to feel like that. There was still that line, like I knew I couldn't cross, you know, I knew I can't go into DC and buy, you know, I knew I couldn't do that. But so I would doctor shop. I'd go to my back doctor and he'd give me Percocet. And then I'd go to my regular doctor and tell him I prefer Vicodin. So I'd get those because they'll, you know, and I was doctor shopping. it started causing problems at home, man, because I started running through them. And when I didn't have them, I was just a miserable son of a bitch. And I would drink more because I didn't want to feel the dope sickness. But the alcohol made the dope sickness worse anyway. But I still kept.
I was just going to say that. It does, yeah.
It's absolutely ridiculous. And at this point, Loomis, I knew I was addicted to it, and I didn't fucking care. I did not give a shit. So I went back to the doctor, and I said, "Hey, man, I think I'm getting used to these. Can we up it again?" And he said, "Sure." And he upped it again, and that was a pretty rough road. My home life. By this time, I had my son and my daughter. My home life became absolute shit. I'm popping pills and drinking 2 tall boys at 8 o'clock in the morning to go coach a football game. The millions of fights over absolutely everything we had, all my fault. Never got physical with my wife or my kids, but the stuff that came out of my mouth was fucking vile. I said the net.
Yeah. The same with me. You know what it is? I think it's because internally we're embarrassed in a way too about it. At least I know I was with it. And every time, my fiance though would be like, I know where you win or whatever. I would scream like, nah, you blah blah blah. But that was just me like screaming out because I didn't want to deal with it, or just go in the room, my own little room and man cave and slam the door and get away. But yeah, I think it's just like it's a subconscious embarrassment though, because
it is. It's 100% embarrassment, man. Because I knew I was addicted, and I tried to stop on my own, and I couldn't. So now, like, I'm in the bathroom in the basement, where I had my vodka bottle, and just staring at the mirror, man. And I'm just like, how weak are you? Like, how fucking pathetic and weak are you that you can't stop this? And it was just, it's just that internal addictive fight in your brain where it's using against your will. It is. And it's hard to explain to people that haven't lived it, because your brain, you've literally I'm like, I'm not doing it today. I'm not doing it today. I'm not doing it today. I would be driving home from the FBI office and say, I'm not stopping at the liquor store. I'd pass the liquor store that I usually go to, and then I'd pass my house. And then I'd be at the liquor store 10 miles down the road with a bottle in my hand, wondering how the fuck I got here. And it was just, or did
you ever have the one though, like where, you would take him no at night, and while you're on him, you're like, yeah, I'm not going to do a no tomorrow. This is the last. This is the last. Yeah. Then tomorrow you make it for about 10 seconds.
Yeah. Or you space them out. You're like, okay, I'm going to have 5 today, 5 tomorrow, 5 the next day. And then the first day you're like, all right, well, I'll have 7 today. And then I'll have 5. But it was miserable, man. It was a miserable existence.
Yeah.
But I'm the only cop in my department with a top secret clearance other than the chiefs. I answer to the chiefs. My ego is up here because I'm the only one that can do that. Every time my FBI phone rang, I had to go save the world. I thought I was super fucking important. I put my family here and my job here for over 10 years, man. Because kind of how I was raised too is like, women stay home with the kids,
mm-hmm.
and your sole job as a man is to provide. So as long as I was still providing, fuck you, I'm doing my job. That's what that's what I'm telling myself. And it was just, it was messed up, man. So I knew I couldn't sustain the pills like I was doing. So I finally went back to my doctor. I'm like, dude, he was getting mad at me because every time I'd go, they make you pee when you go to the pain clinic or whatever. Every time I pee, I'd have alcohol in my system. He's like, I told you can't drink on this, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, okay, man, sorry. It was I'd make some bullshit excuse up that but he just kept giving them to me. But so when I finally told him, I said, I need off of this, man. And he goes, okay, well, don't just stop taking them because you're not going to feel well. I was like, well, no shit, dude. I'm going to get you on a taper, and we'll taper off of it. I was like, all right, cool. So I did the taper the way I should, man, because I wanted off of it. And as soon as that taper was done, my alcohol tripled, man. My alcohol went every single day from the time I got off to the time I blacked out. Started at 8 o'clock in the morning. There's videos of us on vacation at the beach, and all my nieces put a talent show together for everybody at the end of the week, and they're trying to wake me up on the couch, and it's just, I'm dead to the world, man. And it's on video. They videoed. It was embarrassing. I got in some pretty nasty fights with I burned a lot of bridges on alcohol. it was pretty bad. But in so 2018, so we're talking a good 4-5 years of that. I still went to work every day, man. And I'll get into my FBI boss, but she'll tell you she had no clue. And I saw her every day. I was good at being different people in different places. And I could be work Keith for as long as you wanted me to. And when I was doing UC shit, you're paying me to drink anyway. So I'm at work, hanging out with criminals. But
right. Yeah.
In 2018, my oldest little sister, Natalie, she married a Lebanese guy from the Catholic Church in Richmond. And he still has his parents and brothers and sisters in Beirut, Lebanon. And I was overseas, and she was like, "You're close. Why don't you just take a week off and come party with me in Beirut?" I was like, "That is a fabulous idea, Natalie." So I took a week off, man, flew to Beirut, and they got a pretty crazy, nightlife, man. It's the country's kind of divided, like hardcore Muslims and then Catholics. But if you go on, you go to nightclubs and they're dressed like American girls, and the beaches and clubs stay up until 6, 7 in the morning. But I don't remember most of that week. I look at pictures and I remember snapshots because
like a dream, like when you're thinking of a dream.
Yeah, I'll send you the one picture of right when I landed there. But I was drunk the whole time, man, and I embarrassed my sister because I'm staying with her in-laws, man, and I'm waking up and drinking vodka 8, 9 in the morning and passing out for half the day. And then doing
now at this point, though, you're off, Keith. So now, Keith, this point, you're off, though, the pills, right?
So I'll tell you this. I'm off getting them from the pain clinic. Now, every once in a while, I'd go to the doctor and make up some shit and get some anyway. But I was off of them like I was on them, before that. But I was still, if I could get them, I was taking them, man, because I was like, all right, I'm off of them, and then I'd be off of them for 30 days, and then I'd be like, I'm good. I can have them now, and then I'd go get more, and then I play that game for years. Yeah, man, family, friends, you go there, and they got some in the cabinet, and, that kind of just scumbag shit. But it was mainly alcohol at the time. So after that week, I fly back to Europe to finish some stuff, and my sister flies to Dulles because Richmond Airport's small. So she flew to Dulles. She was going to stay at my house with my wife, sleep off her jet lag, and then drive to Richmond the next day. And I never expected this from her because Natalie was my party buddy, man. She was she loved her weed and her, maybe a Xanny bar here and there or whatever, but she could do that and then not do it and then do it. And that she didn't, she wasn't like me. She didn't have whatever's in here.
Yeah.
So she flew back. She flew to Dulles, stayed at my house, and unbeknownst to me, she sat my wife down and goes, I don't really know what's been going on here, but I can tell you what happened last week. And the amount of stuff that Keith put in his body is insane. And if he doesn't get help, he's going to fucking die. So I didn't know that conversation happened. But so I come home 2 days later. My wife is super nice to me. And the detective in me said, something's not right here because you're awfully nice. But I'll take the win. And the next day, my family shows up from 2 hours away. My father, my mother, my in-laws. And they did the TV. They did the TV thing, man. Wrote down whatever.
Intervention.
And I honestly can't remember what anybody had to say other than my wife. And she was just done, dude. And she probably shouldn't have even been around then for as much crap as I put her through. But she said, you're getting help tomorrow or I'm taking the kids and I'm done. And I was just like, I'm not losing my kids over this shit, man. I wanted to stop anyway. I just didn't know how. I didn't have the balls to say anything because I didn't want to get labeled the weak, sissy, whatever. But thankfully, she gave me that push I needed. And she goes, start dialing. And so I call someone in my upper chain of command at the police department. I'm scared shitless, man. I'd rather go to the Navy Yard 5 times and make those calls again. But I texted him. I said, hey, sir, can you give me a call? He goes, I'm on vacation. Is it important? I said, yes, sir, it's pretty important. And he calls me, and I said, hey, man, I'm messed up. I can't stop drinking. I've got a pretty bad problem, and I need to take some time off to get some help. And he basically was just like, how's this going to affect your clearance? I said, sir, I don't know, and I don't care. I'm telling you I need some help. And he goes, well, call this person. And he hung up the phone. I'm like, that went over like the fart in church I was expecting. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the next guy that he told me to call, I was pretty petrified to call, man. I didn't know him that well. He came from a really big city police department. He's pretty new. I didn't know him like that, you know? So I call this guy, man, and I'm expecting to hear worse than I did the first phone call. And that dude helped save my life, man. He talked to me for an hour and a half. Not a negative word came out of his mouth. And he was like, look, man, he goes, since I've been here, you kick ass at work, dude. You're getting accommodations and medals and this and that. He goes, Keith, I need to tell you, it doesn't mean shit, man. He goes, the day you leave the FBI, they're not going to care who Keith Shibley was. The day you leave this police department, they're not going to give a shit who Keith Shibley was. You might have a few of your friends talk about you for a little while. Other than that, you're gone. They're going to replace you with somebody else, and the machine's going to keep going. And it was a smack in the face that I needed, man. You know, I needed that reality check because my ego and everything was so up here that it finally, like, it hit me, dude. Like, my priorities have been so fucked up for ever, like 10 years, at least 10 years or more. So that phone call went well, and then I got to call my FBI boss. She's another one that really saved my life. Her name is Jen May. She's a New Yorker. We call her the honey badger because you don't piss off the honey badger. But she was one of those rare bosses that gave a shit about her people. You know, I see it a lot. I see it a lot more now in law enforcement than I did before. We have a lot of managers and not a lot of leaders, you know. We have a lot of people that can manage you and tell you what you need to do and what you're doing wrong. But we don't have a lot of leaders that invest in their people and lead by example. But Jen was that one, man. And, you know, I didn't know she had recently lost a friend at age like 42 to cirrhosis. I had no idea. Yeah. So she was like, thank you for raising your hand and doing this. And I will have your job waiting for you when you get back. And at this point, I'm thinking my career's done. I mean, it's just done. Like, I've never seen an officer survive like an alcohol or substance abuse problem. You know, it's just, I've never seen it. But most officers also wait till they get the DUI or the domestic fight or the bar fight or the whatever before they get help. So I had that in my favor. But from the history of I think it was 14 or 15 years in law enforcement up to this point, you know, you all knew who the drunks were in the police department, like who had problems, and nobody said shit because it's just, let's wait till they mess up enough so we can fire them. That's how we dealt with alcoholics in law enforcement. So I'm thinking kind of along those routes, and I was like, man, my career's done. But I don't care. I can find a job. I'm not losing my kids and my wife over this shit. So I didn't know how to do it, though. Like, I had no idea. So I start calling our EAP on a Sunday. They're not answering. And, you know, finally I called that one gentleman back, and he goes, dude, just go. He goes, just find a place. Just let us know where you're going. Paperwork will take care of itself, man. Just go. So I called some rehabs. They're not taking me because I'm telling them how much shit I'm putting in my body. They said, you need a medical detox. So I'm calling every medical detox in Google around, and they're all full. You know, they're like, we can see you next week. We can see you on the 15th. We can see you here. I was like, I have to go right now, dude. Like, it's got to be this minute. So finally I called this place in Maryland, and they said, we don't have any beds open, but we have a sister detox in New Jersey. and we'll even send a car to pick you up. I said, send it, man. They sent a car 4 hours down to pick me up. And that was a long 4-hour drive up there, not knowing what to expect, scared shitless, thinking, how am I going to handle this if I had arrested? So I don't know all the people's faces I've arrested over the past 15 years, but they remember my face for sure as the guy that ruined their life or whatever. So it's like, what's going to happen if I go in here and I know someone in here that I put in jail? Is it going to pop off right away? So I was scared, man. I was petrified, to be honest with you. But I went in sober. I had about 30 hours without anything when I got there.
Were you feeling like any withdrawal symptoms or no?
Oh yeah, it was bad. But there's no way I was gonna sit here and drink in front of my wife before I go to read. I couldn't do it. Like, it's like somebody said, don't do it. Like, I probably, now that I know the medical side of it, I probably should have drank until I got there. But
the real thing is, before you know you're going in, it's like, all right, if I'm going in tomorrow or I'm going in 2 hours from now, it's rock and roll time until then, because this is my last. That's what a lot of people do, you know.
So my last drink of alcohol was on British Airways flight from Europe.
How long ago was that?
My last drink was July 21st, 2018.
Nice, man. Congrats.
Yeah. So, I go into this to this detox place, and I don't know what to expect. And it's funny, man, because I guess you could see the scared on my face. But this young kid comes up to me in his 20s, he's like 20, and he's like, "You look scared shitless." I'm like, "Yeah, dude." He's like, "Man, I've been here like 3 times. I got you. Don't worry about it." And actually, I still talk to that kid, man. He's been in and out, but he's a good kid. He calmed me down a little bit, but they're doing my intake, and I go into this little room. There's a nurse there, and there's these 2 security guys there, and it's take off your shirt, take off your pants, drop your drawers. I'm like, whoa. They're like, drop them, bend over, cough, lift up your nuts. And dude, Loomis, right then it hit me, dude. I was like, how did I get from the kid that wouldn't even smoke weed to lifting up my nuts in this closet, dude? Like, how did I get to this spot? I didn't go out and start, I'm going to try all these different things and see. I wouldn't do anything, and it just happened, man. So for those people that think that addiction is a choice, I had zero choice in that, man. I saw a doctor that gave me a pill that he said I needed, and from the first one that entered my body, it flipped something in my brain, and you can't turn it off. It was off to the races. So I do the 7 days there. A lot of sleeping. They keep you pretty medicated. But I went, I woke up and I went to the group things. They had people coming in talking about AA. They had people coming in talking about NA. They had meetings there. They did individual stuff. And smoked a lot of cigarettes. But, I'll never forget. It was like my second day there, man. There was this girl, and it was like in the day room. She was we thought she was sleeping on the couch. She had snuck some stuff in, man, and it was like day 2. Like, she was dead, like on the couch of overdose. So it's like, it was a lot to take in, from cop to like. It was a lot to take in, man. But I knew I didn't want to
capitalize on what you said too. Like when you were, how am I getting my nuts lifted up and to drop your drawers and all that? This nobody wants to be addicted or nobody wants to be in those situations. It's just what happens. Like, and I seen the toughest guys in the world. I mean, some of them aren't even here anymore. They couldn't quit. Like, it doesn't discriminate at all.
Yeah, 100% it doesn't. I mean, yeah, throughout my years, I've seen lawyers, judges, and I've seen people that live on the street. It's every aspect of life.
Some of the people that live on the street, though, used to be those things. You know what I'm saying? That's the other thing, too, where people have it all screwed up. Like, I don't think that white-collar people could be. No, it does not discriminate at all.
It doesn't. So I did all that stuff, and I really just wanted to get better. I really just was like, if you could take this away from me, like my surrender was immediate. I said, I will do whatever you tell me to do, man. If you can fix whatever the fuck is going on in here, I'll do it. Like, You tell me to color in a coloring book for 2 straight days, I'm coloring, man. I don't care what it is. So at the end of 7 days, I remember calling my wife and I was like, I'm coming home, man. It's been 7 days. 7 days is a miracle to me. 7 days was like unheard of.
One day is. Yeah. One day is. Yeah.
It really is. So, I guess the therapist lady I was talking to there had ended up talking to my wife or whatever. And my wife's like, no, you need 30-day inpatient. And I was like, I don't. She was 30-day inpatient or don't come home, dude. I said, can it just at least be not in New Jersey? So, they found a nice bougie ass rehab by my house. It was probably about 10 miles away, but it was a mansion. There's like 3 mansions in this cul-de-sac, and each mansion was converted to a rehab. So I was in there with 8 other guys. Dude, there was no internet, no phone. We could call home like every other day, but they listen to your phone call. So we had a chef. Dude, that chef was awesome. We had massages on Thursday, acupuncture.
I was at a joint like that. Yeah.
So, I tell my wife now, I was like, keep it up, and I'm going to relapse just to go back to the mansion, dude. But, I still couldn't fit in with the group setting because, you got a lot of people there like, fuck the police. It's all that stuff. And I'm like, most of the stuff I needed to get off my chest was police related. And I wasn't going to say that in that setting because I didn't feel comfortable. But my therapist for the month was she was the wife of a DC police officer. So she wasn't a cop, but she knew more about cop shit than anybody else there. And, we just started talking, and I said, I'll do whatever you tell me to do. And we started going through stuff, and I started talking about stuff I've never talked about before. And I started feeling better just getting it out, dude. And then, she was like, I want you to take this test. It's for PTSD. I was like, I don't have that. I've never been to war. I'm not a soldier. I didn't understand what it was. And she's like, that's not what it is. And we kind of talked about it. And just the individual therapy shit started helping me a lot. And they made us go to 12-step meetings at night. We load into the little van we call the druggie buggy. Yeah. We take the druggie buggy to the meetings. And except for Wednesday, we had like a bonfire night at the house. But, I go to these meetings and I'm immediately telling myself I'm different, right? Because I get there and, I'm hearing people's stories. I'm like, I'm not you. I'm not like you. I'm not like you. I've got a job. I've got a house. I pay my bills. So I'm not like you people. You know what I mean? So I just sat in the back, didn't say a word. And but the one thing I could tell was I was like, some of these dudes are really happy. I'm like, how the fuck are these people so happy, dude? Like they were just happy with life. And I'm like, I kind of want that, but I didn't think they were sober. I was like, there's no way you're that happy and you don't take any kind of anything. So, I went to those every day for a month. 5-6 times a week. And I was leaving at the end of my 28 days, I was leaving rehab. And I remember I was petrified, man. I'm leaving the security bubble. Like I was fine there, but how am I going to navigate life outside of here when 7-Eleven has everything I want right down the street and the liquor store is a half mile away from my house? Like, how do I not go in there? Because my brain's still telling me it needs it. 38 days or whatever, 40 days is not nearly enough to stop what was going on.
No, yeah. For me, it took over a year.
Yeah, easily. So I remember expressing my concern to my therapist, man, and she goes, Keith, go home, be with your family, see your wife and kid. My son was 14 when I got sober. My daughter was 8. My daughter kind of knew what's going on. My son knew everything, and he was mad. He was pissed. I remember the first time he came to see me on Sunday, they let him come for an hour to see us. And he came in, and he was my buddy, dude. He was my sidekick, man. He came in, and he looked right at me, and he turned his chair around and sat with his back to me and wouldn't talk to me at all. I'm like, it was that was heartbreaking.
Yeah.
So I knew I had to repair a lot of shit at home. And she was like, just go do stuff with your family, man. And she goes, do me a favor. Instead of going to a 7-Eleven, just here's a list. Go to one of these meetings tonight. I was like, I don't want to go. She goes, I know you hate them. Just go anyway. And I was like, whatever. I'm not going. So I go home, do the family stuff, talking to the wife. And she's like, just go to one of those meetings. I was like, whatever. I mean, I was like, I had nothing to do. My brain's still going 800 miles.
It seems like you have a great wife, man.
100%. No way she should still be here. There's no way.
A real, she's still with you. So you got yourself a real one.
Yeah.
So congrats.
So I ended up going, and I sat in the back, and then I go home. Next day, chomping at the bit, I go again. I was like, okay, it worked yesterday. I'm just going to do what I did yesterday. Went back, and I just kept going. And yeah, the first year was rough, man, because I went every day I say every day. I probably missed a day here and there. For the most part, I went every day for a year. And by the end of that year, I was participating. I was actually opening my mouth in the meetings. They're like, get a sponsor. You need a sponsor right away. I'm like, I'm not telling any of these people my shit. Like, I don't know them, So it took me a while, man. But there was this one guy, Rod, dude. Every time he talked, I could relate to what he had to say. And he said good shit. And he had been clean for a long time. So, I mean, if I went up to him, I was like, hey, man, I'd talk to him here or there, but I was like, I'd really like it if you were my sponsor. And he's a crusty old dude. He puts it to me the way he doesn't sugarcoat shit, man. He's the kind of guy I need, man. So he's like, look, man, he goes, I take this shit seriously. It's a pretty big commitment. How about you just call me and we get to know each other first, and then we'll see what happens. And we did that. And he started telling him a little bit of stuff, and it didn't get out. So I tell him a little bit more, and it didn't get out. And it just the relationship evolved. He's still my sponsor now, man. I talk to that dude almost every day. It's probably one of the single-handedly biggest things that recovery got me. To have an older male in your life that is not a family member and not a coworker, that you can say whatever you want to and know that it's not going to get out, is the most freeing thing you have, man. And, I'm still pretty stupid. So big life decisions, man, I talk to him about it. And I can't trust my brain 100% of the time still. So half the times when I call him and talk to him about it, by the time I'm ended up saying it, I'm like, well, that sounds dumb as shit out loud. And he just starts laughing. He was like, yeah, but the first year was rough. It was, I couldn't be around any booze at all because I would just crave it. And then, I remember being, I think I was clean for about 6 months, and we went to the beach. My brother, my sisters, my nieces, my nephews, we get a big beach house, and I was like, just sitting in a chair feeling sorry for myself because they're all partying at the beach and having fun. I'm like, this is bullshit. You know what? I haven't had anything my brain starts talking. You haven't had anything for 6 months. You're good. So I go off to the store, and I'm sitting there at the convenience store looking at like the beer. And I was like, man, I don't really feel like getting in that fight with my wife. So I call her. I said, hey, I'm at the convenience store. Do you need anything? She goes, no, what the fuck are you doing there? I said, I'm going to get a beer. And I said, before you say anything, I was like, do you care if I just get like a 6-pack of O'Doul's? She goes, that's the non-alcoholic stuff. She goes, as long as it doesn't have alcohol in it, I don't care. So I got a 6-pack of O'Doul's, man. And went back to the beach, and I cracked that first one. Oh, it tasted so good, dude. But 15 minutes later, she comes up to me and she goes, what the fuck are you doing? And I was on my 4th one, dude. I had no idea because it just said beer, go. My brain I just dropped it. I said, I can't do this. I said, I can't even do this, man. Like, that showed me without a doubt that you can't turn that off. It's when the switch was flipped, there's no cutting it off, man. Because I didn't understand addiction. I thought maybe, after a year I could start responsibly again or whatever. I didn't understand it. And just a non-alcoholic beer made me realize, like, you can't even touch it. You can't even do this, dude, because it's going to be the gateway right to the real thing. So as time got on, it got easier, man. But going back to work was I didn't know how that was going to go.
I would think though a lot of people would get sent though into like treatment facilities though in the police and all that. Actually, a lot of treatment centers I went to, I met a lot of cops and firemen from New York and stuff like that. It wasn't like that where you were at.
So there are some, Loomis, but like I said, most of the time it's because you just got a DUI and you have to go. Usually it's this is the only way you can maybe save your job is if you go there and you complete it.
But without saving though yourself, and if you're not right yourself, and you can't do anything, you can't be a parent, you can't do nothing besides a fucking job. You got to be right with yourself before you do anything.
You do, know? And
going back to what you said too, isn't it funny how I grew up the same way? Keep your mouth shut. Don't say a word about your feelings, this or that. It's actually harder to open up. I always say now, I used to think the true tough guy was the guy that would just, could beat the brakes out of someone in the back alley or in the neighborhood and this and that. No, the true tough guy, I think, is the one that could actually open up and discuss his problems, because that shit's not easy to do.
No, it's not.
To throw a punch, that's easy. To fucking actually open up and let all of that out, you have to. And if you suppress everything, you're just like it's a ticking time bomb that's gonna just go off.
That's why I like having Rod in my life. That it's just I know that I can tell him whatever, dude. He's not going to judge me. Well, no, he's called me a dumbass quite a few times, but other than that, he's not. But he's he means well, and I know that I can be as vulnerable as I need to, and it's not going anywhere, man. He's not putting the bulletin out that, oh, I can't believe this bothers Keith, he's a pussy type shit. Like it's one of the most freeing things that I've had. But I tell my daughter, I don't know what it was. It was recently. Me and my daughter were talking about shows like yours and stuff that I've done a few of, and I told her, man, I said, addiction, as messed up as it sounds, addiction is the best gift I was ever given, man. I've never been this person before, ever. It's just, it was a fucked up gift, but it was the best gift.
I could tell though, just like from the stuff you were saying from the past hour, you're talking like you seem very honest, and honesty is everything. When you're not hiding shit in or doing whatever, you're just being you. Then that's what makes you. That's what for me anyway. That's when I started becoming very comfortable, and I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna tell the truth anymore, and no matter how people say it, whatever, it's the truth. And little did I know, all that stuff that I was afraid to say, it actually everything ended up okay, and I'm still alive, and I'm grateful. Thank God we opened our mouths,
And that's why a lot of people call it the bonus round, man. There's a lot of people that don't make it this far. A lot of people. It'll be, I guess, 7 years in July that I've been in recovery, man. Too many funerals all the time. It's nasty stuff, man. And young people.
My dad's 75 years old and I'm 44. And he told me that I went to like double the amount of wakes and funerals that he went to at the age of 75.
Oh, I'm sure.
Especially with the fentanyl epidemic. I lost all my best friends are pretty much dead. Like it's terrible. It's terrible. They didn't want to be that. They didn't want to end up that way. You know what I'm saying?
And especially during COVID, man. Like COVID, when meetings got shut down. So this is one thing that saved my ass, man, because we had a group of people. We met in the church parking lot in the winter, and kind of like choir practice, man. We all bought a chair and we sat out and we made our own meeting. If you don't want to let us in the church or whatever, fine. And we would meet at the parking lot, and we would, that got me through it. But COVID,
that's when I realized.
Being stuck in your house was bad for a lot of people. But going back to work was rough. I didn't know how people were going to handle it. I didn't know what I was going to say. So when I go back to the PD, I just decided to rip the Band-Aid off, man. My buddy Joe's walking down the hallway. He's like, "Where you been, dude?" I was like, "Rehab, man." And he started laughing. He's like, "No, seriously." And I'm like, "No, seriously. I just got out of rehab." And at that point, I'm like, "You're going to talk shit or you're not. Like, whatever." Yeah. I mean, you already are talking shit or you're not. If you're my friend, you're my friend. If you're not, you're not.
Exactly. Yes.
But they weren't going to send me. They weren't going to send me back to the FBI because they thought that was the catalyst to all this. And I tried to explain to them. I'm like, it's not the work I was doing at the FBI. It's 40 years. I got clean at 40. I was like, it's 40 years worth of shit, man. It's my cup is overflowing. So my boss, Jen, she ended up calling to have a sit down with the upper echelon of my police department. And she went in there and she was like, Keith raised his hand and said he needs help before he got in trouble. If you punish him, what message are you sending all the other cops? That if they want to keep their job, to keep their mouth shut?
Yeah.
So, yeah, you don't fuck with the honey badger, man. She had her point across, and she came out of that office, and she's like, I'll see you on Monday. And I was like, no way. So went in, and they, I was only supposed to be there 4 years. Like I said, I was there for 10. So they were just like, hey, look, we're going to let you go back, but you've been there long enough. So we're going to give you a year. Unwind. Don't get in any long-term investigations. But at least it let me walk out of the building with my head held high and not like I was. You know what I mean? So I appreciated that. And, in the years that have gone by, and I've been vocal about this, our department's done a 180, man. They went from we don't know what to do with you to, our peer program is gotten bigger. People take it seriously. The peers are trained to be peer support now. And in like Virginia, we have to go through this 1 week class, and you sign a piece of paper, man, where if you come up and tell me something as peer support that bothers you, and I go spread it around, I can be held legally responsible. So we all sign that paper, man, and we take it pretty seriously. And we got a clinician that deals with first responders that's kind of attached to our department that we send people to. And, that really helped out. That really helped out recently, dude, because, I worked that helicopter plane crash at DCA in February.
Yeah, is that the one? Wait, I remember. So when I called my mother, and she was watching these ice skaters, and she was like, crying. She's like, "That's the one you're talking about, where all the kids at the ice skating."
Yeah, it was a junior Olympic ice skating team. So I remember.
So you were where when that you were working right there at that?
So I was at Dulles, which is about 30 minutes away, and my phone just blew up. And I work a K9 dog now, so I dropped my dog off at home because I'm going as a peer support person, right? And nobody told me to go, and I'm self-dispatching again, so I could probably get. So I called the peer support leader, and I'm like, hey man, how many people do you got going to Reagan? And he said he's got a couple, and he goes, meet me at Terminal A. I was like, what's the Terminal A? He said, oh, that's where the Unified Command is. I said, where the fuck? Because we're pretty tight with our fire guys at the airports too, because it's smaller, and we intermingle all the time. I said, and the fire department has 2 boat crews right there on the Potomac River. I said, where are the fire guys bringing the deceased people? And they said the North Loading Dock. I said, I'll be at the North Loading Dock. Now, the only good part about this now is I know what I'm getting into. I think I know what I'm getting into, but I have tools to combat that now. You know what I mean? So I know I'm going to go into a nasty situation that's probably going to fuck with me, but I know I have tools to mitigate it. So I go down there, man, and it was, it was nothing like I've ever seen. It was, they're bringing the people up the dock, and they're like, because I was there, they're like, you're going to be in charge of the casualty collection point. So I have to stand there and watch all the bodies after they, kind of count, like keep track of them and stuff. And it was good. It was bad. But when they started bringing up kids, I don't do kids, man.
Yeah.
And then they start bringing up partial people. And it was nasty, man. One of the fire guys comes, because I've talked to the fire departments too about this kind of stuff. So one of the fire guys ran up and got me. They're like, hey, Keith, we need you down here at the dock. So I run down to the dock, and there's this young firefighter sitting in the boat, and he was holding something. I'm assuming a kid, but he no longer had anything in his hands. He's sitting in the boat like this, and he's a statue. He's not moving. He's not talking.
Yeah.
And they're like, what do we do? I said, get him the fuck out of here, man. I said, go get him to the fire station now. And then I'd been down there for like the first maybe 3 hours of it. And I called somebody. I said, "You need to take over my spot, man, because like my main concern is this dude right now." And I went with him to the fire department and called the clinician, and she came in, and it's just good to see that, man. That stuff wouldn't have happened 20 years ago. It would have been like, he's broken, get him out of here. But it's like, take him aside and start working on what you need to work on now, so you're not popping pills and drinking a fifth later. You know what I mean? Yeah. And it was a long month. We were there for about a month.
So you were the one. You were actually. I mean, I don't mean to keep bringing this back. But you that was getting the bodies.
Yeah.
Of the children and even the partials and all that.
For the first. I don't know. I think there was about 7 for the first 25, 30 people. And then a lot of them were trapped inside, and they couldn't get them for a couple of days because they had to cut through a bunch of the plane. But it's just, I mean, it's not just the kids, man. You know, then you're down there and you see like in the one hangar is where we were putting all the plane parts and property, and so for the next week, I'm going around just checking on people, man. I'm just like checking on people, and I'm going in there, and you know, you're seeing the ice skating pass that they wore on their neck to get into the stadium, and you're seeing the ice skates, and you're seeing a teddy bear, and you're seeing this, and it's just like, dude. But we had people there, like we had peer support there, we had clinicians there, we had and a lot of people reached out afterwards. They're like, "This bothered me, man. What do we do?" I'm like, "Cool, let's start working on it now." So, but you know, I remember coming home like after the second night or third night, and the worst thing for me was social media. So, you know, I'm looking at Twitter or X or whatever, Facebook, Instagram, and now I'm seeing these pictures of these kids, and I could kind of compartmentalize it as work. That's evidence for work. But now I'm seeing their picture on social media, and my dumbass started reading about it. So now I'm putting real life to that. And yeah, that's when I lost it, man. I mean, I was a blubbering mess. I don't know. I tell people I probably cried every day for a week when I got home, dude. I just went in the basement and lost it. Whatever. You know what I mean? Had a little issue sleeping for about 2 or 3 nights where I couldn't get to sleep. But you know, go see a sponsor. EMDR for me worked great. I don't know. I know some people it doesn't. EMDR worked pretty good, but
what is that exactly? EMDR?
Eye movement desensitization reprocessing. So it's kind of like they could do it tapping with buzzers, with sounds. So when you have a traumatic incident, that's how they explain it to me. Your brain wraps it in a box and puts it in the back of your brain, right? Mm-hmm. And you don't want to think about it, so you just shove that box down there. And then when you go to sleep and you have a nightmare or you smell a certain smell or see something, it opens that box up, and you're just thinking about like it basically floods your brain with it, you know? So EMDR is not a fun process, but what it does is you sit there with a therapist and you either kind of get in this really relaxed state and you open the box, man, and you go through that incident very graphically or as best you detailed. And then you stop and you talk about it, and then you stop, and then you just do it. And what it does, it allows your brain to actually process that event instead of shoving it way back down there. So, I mean, it still sucks, man. You know, but what used to be an 8 or a 9 on my oh shit scale when the box opened is now like a 2 or a 3. Yeah. It's gonna be there forever. It's just it doesn't consume you. But it's just weird how the brain works, man. Because I flew to Minneapolis last week to do a presentation on substance abuse for a police department, and it was the first time I flew since then. I straight up thought I was having a heart attack in that plane, man. I don't like flying anyway. Yeah. It was like the whole 3 hours there, I was just waiting for impact. I work at an airport, man. I see thousands of planes take off and land safely every day for 20 years, and nothing happens. And this one incident has me convinced that my plane's going down.
I could see that, though. And the weird thing, though, too, is, though, how about there's way more motor car wrecks than airplane wrecks. Yeah. But the thing that always got me with the planes is I'm not in control.
That's it. It's 100% it. I have no say. I have no say in how the outcome of this.
Yeah.
And every little bump, man, I was just crapping my pants. But so I called the therapist, man. I said, hey, dude, I need to EMDR this plane crash, man. Because I can't be, me and my wife, we haven't gone on a vacation in years. We're finally going on a vacation in July. And I got to fly. And I'm like, I got to fix this before it gets too bad. But it's just knowing, it's the stigma of being weak. If you go see a therapist or ask for help or whatever, it's just, I'm just trying to help squash it, man. Cause it gets, it's still out there, especially in first responder, military type of stuff,
And I heard that there's almost more, I won't say the word because they reached out to me on YouTube, but there's more ex-police or police that are taking themselves out than more that's happening on the line of duty. You know what I mean?
It has outnumbered line of duty deaths for the past 5 years by a lot.
Yeah, that's what Mike Segru was just telling me that my last episode. He was like, it's crazy.
And the big thing is they don't even compute. They don't even really compute retired cops. It's just cops. So if you go to one of those situations, and it's a retired guy, how the FBI gets their information is reports. They collect all the data from across the country. Well, if I go to one and they're like, well, he was a cop 10 years ago, I'm probably not going to put in my report that he was a cop 10 years ago. I'm just going to put that this guy, took himself out or whatever. And so that one's never been counted because it's a retired guy. So the number is actually probably a lot bigger than we actually anticipated to be.
That's a good point. Yeah. I mean, that whole, but you said, though, now it's a lot better than when you first started, where people are opening up or they can talk about the mental health aspect of, because, you guys are seeing crazy shit just that airplane crash alone. And
this is just a sergeant doing her job. This guy started calling in sick all the time, and he never called in sick. And he's got probably 5 years my senior, Marine, sniper, SWAT guy. He's like the guy at the police department that everybody's like, that's the guy I want with me. Kept calling in sick. And finally, she just asked him one simple question. She goes, this is not like you, man. What is going on? And that's all she had to say. And he lost it on the phone. I can't stop drinking since COVID. I drink every single day. I'm too drunk to come to work. I have to keep calling sick. And she said, are you cool with Shibley? And he goes, yeah. She goes, you need to call Shibley right now. And this guy called me at 2:00 in the morning. And I was shocked that he called me. And he's telling me what's going on. And I'm like, all right, bud. I said, I have to ask you this question. Have you thought about taking yourself out of the equation? And he was like, yep, I've had a firearm in my lap for the past 2 days. I said, I'll be at your house in a couple hours, man. I went to his house, and just like me, man, he's like, there's no way I'm going to a rehab. There's no way. I was like, all right, man, well, let's just talk about it. And after a little while, I convinced him that it's not going to fix itself, So unbeknownst to me, when I went through it, there's a bunch of different rehabs around that are first responder military friendly. This one, Warriors Heart's a big one. They're in Virginia and Texas. Harbor Race is another one. So, and they have an inpatient detox and a third day, so you're not having to, go in completely scared shitless like I did. But so I called.
They have the detox and the rehab there,
all in one. Yeah. So I called. I think it was Harbor of Grace, and I said, "Hey, man, I got this guy." She goes, "When does he want to come?" I was like, "I'll be there in 4 hours." She was like, "What?" I was like, "It's got to happen now." And they're accommodating, man. They said, we'll make it work. Just get over here. And I'm driving him 4 hours away to go to this place. And just like I was, he's petrified, tears going, never seen him like this, and he's like, Shibley, how did I end up here? I'm like, I don't know, bro. I said, but we'll figure it out. You know what I mean? We'll figure it out. And all the accommodations and awards I won in law enforcement, that I was awarded in law enforcement, I thought meant shit, and it doesn't. But he looked right at me and said, he goes, if you weren't open about your substance abuse, I would have definitely taken myself out. You can't put a price on that stuff, man. A couple little bumps, but he's still doing good. And, in the past couple of years, I've sent a couple cops to rehab. Some because they raised their hand. More cops still are wait till they get in a little bit of trouble before they go. But it's not the career ending thing it once was, man. Continue doing the job.
I know, and during all this time, though, they don't even have these programs, that they have today, though, where you could at least let stuff out or do it. Because, like you said, you had to be you had to be the tough guy. You had to block it off. You just had to block it up. And I mean, that's why I think there's so many divorce rates with cops. There's so much, what we were just talking about, taking themselves out and stuff like that. Because, I mean, with addiction, man, it all boils down to, man, if you gotta be honest, you gotta talk it out, or you're fucked. I mean, you really are.
And I'll tell you, just being honest, it's such a freeing feeling, man,
isn't it?
Getting rid of it all. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And even if it's not like, I agree with like what some of the literature says. Like, if it's going to hurt that person, you don't have to be truthful about it. But just in the step work itself of putting everything on paper. If you can't say it to that person, put it on paper or tell somebody else. But it is just like,
it's the most free and feeling. But there's some people though out there who will still use. They'll just be like, "Oh, I miss the old you, man. When you were out, I'm like, you miss it. I was like killing myself. So you're not my friend." So my point though is the way I am now. Like, I'm at peace with myself. Some people aren't going to like it, but this is the honest. This is who I am, and you got to learn how to love yourself. And that's I'm at that point. And if people don't like it, I do, because I used to seek validation a lot. I always wanted validation, and we figure out little problems with ourselves. I still talk to a psychiatrist. I'm more of a one-on-one. Like,
me too. I do too. It's all one-on-one usually now, but
yeah, like I go and I have to pay cash. It's it's no insurance, a lot of money, but you know what? I always said I'd pay $1 million for peace of mind. So that's what I do though. But it's just like, I don't care anymore. Like, I used to say, "Oh, I don't care what others think about me, F them," but I did. Yeah. But now I don't. Because this is the real me, and if people don't like it, then not everyone's gonna like you. It's like, so, but be honest, be true to yourself and to your loved ones, and that's just such a beautiful. It almost feels like chains unshackling off you, like that's like free. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I can't tell you how many people that I thought I was really close with, that when I stopped going to bars and drinking, you don't get calls from anymore. You don't get invited.
Yeah, Keith, I miss the old you. Fucking your whole wife.
You don't even get invited to go to dinner. Like some of the couples we used to hang out with, used to go out and have. It's just. But I tell you what, man, and I tell all the cops I talk to this. The friends I've made in recovery are some of the best people ever, and some of them are felons, man, and some of them were hardcore drug addicts, and I trust them a lot more than I trust half the people I work with. I really do. And it's, I mean, man, I've got friends from all walks of life. The bad thing about policing is this: you get into policing and you start hanging out with just police, and you party with just police or firefighters or whatever. And that's you just isolate yourself to that small group. And it's, man, I got friends from every ethnicity, walk of life, sexual preference. Like, if you're a good person, you're a good person.
Yeah, you're a good person. You're a good
It's
person.
just a bunch of cool people that I would have never met if it wasn't for all this.
And your ego, though, was probably, inflated a little bit, too, even going in there like, "Oh, I'm not like these, guys." Okay, you were saying before, because I'm police, because I'm this or that. Yep. But I'll tell you what, Keith, I met some of the smartest and, like you just said, and greatest people. And no one, when we weren't born and said, "Yes, I want to be an addict and go to rehab." Like, you know what I mean? Like, we didn't do that. So just because someone didn't live the same lifestyle or whatever you did, or meaning like career path. I mean, there's fantastic people out there.
Yeah. And it's also given me just empathy for people I deal with at work, man. When I used to be that 20-year-old prick cop, I mean, it's given me empathy. Just try to give people a new way out.
Yeah. And that's good, though. That's not, though, like it was, though, the old days. Like you said, it's more accessible now for people that if they're having a tough day, let's hypothetically say I'm on duty with you or whatever, and I look over, I'm like, dude, my head's all fucked up, this and that, blah blah blah. Now there's steps that I can take and won't look like the little punk coward, because I get it. That's how we grew up around here. Like, we weren't able to, and even my father to this day doesn't understand. He would be like, "Why can't you just drink your beer and smoke your pot?"
Why can't you be normal? Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. I want to be normal,
Right.
but I wish I was. But
Yeah, me too.
But I mean, now looking back at all of it, though, would you change any of it?
No. I mean, I would have liked to maybe get clean a lot sooner. I wish I didn't wait long enough to make. I wish my wife would have smacked me in the face a couple years earlier. But I mean, I had to go through my process to get to where I'm at. And like I was talking to my son, and I don't know if you know you're a spiritual person, but like he even asked me. He's like, Dad, do you think God had made you go through that so you can do what you're doing now? I said, absolutely, man. Like, there's a reason for all this stuff.
Oh yeah, no, 100%.
So,
and I'm very spiritual. That's how I got sober. Once I
Me
had
too.
that awakening. Yeah.
So I was spiritual for, because that's how I grew up. But I lost it for over 10 years, man. Like, especially using and seeing it. I was like, there's nothing out there. And then, but yeah, man, I really think that I went through that for a purpose. So.
Nice, man.
Just try to spread it, and it keeps me clean talking about it. My chief asked me the other day, because we've had, a younger guy that isn't doing so well. He goes, how did you just stop the first time and stop? I said, it's all ego, chief. I said, I do podcasts and I said, I've talked too much shit to too many people to mess up now. I said, and that's in my brain. I've talked this stuff to so many people. I was like, I don't want to be that guy that, the guy that did This Is Your Brain on Drugs commercial with the egg? He died of an overdose. Like, he relapsed and died of an overdose. So it's like, I don't want to be that guy,
I never knew that, but no, go ahead. Yeah.
So every time I do like a show like yours or Kevin's or talk to a police department, it helps me more than it helps anybody listen, for sure.
Yeah.
I appreciate you having me on here.
No, man, I appreciate you coming on. This was fantastic. No.
Yeah, but your show stood out, man, for sure. So
I appreciate that, Keith. And thank you so much, my friend, for coming on. Stay in touch. And
and if you, dude, if you get the itch, you need an ear, dude, call me anytime, man. My phone's always on, man. Seriously.